The shrill ring of the phone pierced through the thick veil of grief that had consumed me since Derek's passing. Reluctantly, I reached for the receiver, my hand trembling with a mix of dread and curiosity. "Lila, it's Eleanor," the stern voice at the other end announced, devoid of any warmth or condolences. My heart sank as I recognized the steely tone of my late husband's mother. Even in my darkest moments, she found a way to intrude, her presence as unwelcome as ever. "What do you want, Eleanor?" I mustered, my voice strained with barely concealed contempt. "I need you to move in with me," she stated matter-of-factly, as if making a simple request for groceries. "It's your duty as a daughter-in-law to care for me now that Derek is gone." I recoiled at her audacity, anger rising within me like a tidal wave. "Are you serious? Derek just died, and you're already trying to control me? I'm not your servant, Eleanor." "Don't take that tone with me, young lady," she snapped, her words dripping with disdain. "You owe me for all the sacrifices I've made for this family." I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to hurl the phone across the room. "You've done nothing but belittle and undermine me since the day I married Derek. Why should I subject myself to more of your abuse?" "How dare you speak to me like that?" Eleanor's voice rose to a shrill pitch, her rage palpable even through the receiver. "After everything I've done for you, this is the thanks I get? You ungrateful, selfish girl." "Enough," I shouted, my patience finally snapping. "I don't owe you a damn thing, Eleanor. Derek is gone, but that doesn't give you the right to dictate my life. I'm not coming to live with you, and that's final." With a defiant click, I slammed the phone down, severing the connection with a sense of empowerment I hadn't felt in years. Eleanor's toxic grip on my life had finally reached its limit, and I was determined to break free, no matter the cost. As I sank back into the couch, tears streamed down my face, a potent mix of grief and liberation. Derek's passing had left a gaping void in my heart, but it had also presented an opportunity, a chance to reclaim my identity and free myself from the shackles of Eleanor's cruelty. The words she had hurled at me echoed in my mind, a painful reminder of the countless times she had belittled and demeaned me, even in Derek's presence. But this time, something was different. A fire had been ignited within me, a burning desire to stand up for myself and confront the demons of my past. With trembling hands, I reached for a pen and paper, determined to put my defiance into writing. Eleanor's reign of terror would end, and I would emerge victorious, no matter the cost. As I set down the pen, my mind drifted back to the countless times Eleanor had made my life a living hell. Her words, sharp as daggers, had left invisible scars that ran deeper than any physical wound. One memory, in particular, resurfaced with a vengeance. It was the night Derek and I had gathered the courage to share our struggles with fertility, a moment that should have been met with compassion and understanding. "Mother, Lila and I have something to tell you," Derek had said, his voice heavy with trepidation. Eleanor's eyes narrowed, her lips pursed in a thin line of disapproval. "Well, out with it then. I haven't got all day." I swallowed hard, steeling myself for her reaction. "We've been trying to conceive for over a year now, but it hasn't been easy. The doctors say I may have issues with—" "Enough," Eleanor cut me off, her tone as cold as ice. "I don't want to hear about your feminine troubles, Lila. This is what happens when a woman puts off having children for her career." Derek's face flushed with anger, but before he could speak, Eleanor continued her tirade. "I sacrificed everything to raise my family, and this is how you repay me? By denying me the joy of grandchildren?" "Mother, that's enough," Derek snapped, but his words fell on deaf ears. Eleanor turned her withering gaze on me, her eyes burning with contempt. "Mark my words, Lila, if you can't give me grandchildren, you'll never be a true part of this family." The memory still stung like an open wound, a stark reminder of the emotional torment Eleanor had inflicted upon me. Her words had cut deeper than any knife, leaving me feeling inadequate and unworthy of Derek's love. But now, with Derek gone, Eleanor's cruelty had reached a new level of audacity. How dare she demand that I move in and care for her, as if I were her indentured servant? Anger coursed through my veins, fueling my determination to stand up to her once and for all. I would no longer cower in fear or shrink from her vile insults. With a newfound sense of resolve, I picked up the pen and began to draft a letter, a defiant declaration of my independence. Eleanor would learn that her reign of terror was over, and I would no longer be a willing participant in her twisted games. The words flowed effortlessly, each sentence a testament to my newfound strength and resilience. I would not be cowed by her demands or intimidated by her threats. This was my life, my future, and I would shape it on my own terms. As I sealed the envelope, a sense of empowerment washed over me. This was just the beginning, a simple act of defiance that would ignite a firestorm of consequences. Eleanor had underestimated me for far too long, and now she would face the wrath of a woman scorned. With a newfound determination, I slipped the letter into the mailbox, setting in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the course of my life and my relationship with the woman who had once held such power over me. Days passed with no word from Eleanor, and I began to wonder if my letter had fallen on deaf ears. Perhaps she had finally accepted my decision and resigned herself to the fact that her control over me had come to an end. That naive hope was shattered one morning when the doorbell rang with a furious cadence. Hesitantly, I approached the door, peering through the peephole to see Eleanor's seething form on the other side. Taking a deep breath, I unlatched the lock and swung the door open, bracing myself for the onslaught. "How dare you?" Eleanor spat, her eyes blazing with fury. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? With disrespect and ingratitude?" I squared my shoulders, refusing to shrink from her wrath. "I owe you nothing, Eleanor. Derek is gone, and you have no claim over my life anymore." "No claim?" she seethed, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. "I am your mother-in-law, and you will show me the respect I deserve." "Respect?" I scoffed, my own anger rising to the surface. "You've done nothing but belittle and demean me since the day I married Derek. When have you ever shown me an ounce of respect?" Eleanor's face contorted with rage, her lips curling into a sneer. "You ungrateful wretch! If it weren't for me, you'd have nothing. Derek was too good for you, and now you've thrown away your last chance at being part of this family." "I am not your property, Eleanor," I stated firmly, my voice unwavering. "I don't need your approval or your dysfunctional idea of family. I'm my own person, and I won't let you control me anymore." Eleanor's eyes narrowed, her gaze cold and calculating. "You'll regret this, Lila. Mark my words, I'll make your life a living hell. No one turns their back on me and gets away with it." With those chilling words, she turned on her heel and stormed away, leaving me standing in the doorway, my heart pounding in my chest. I had done it. I had faced my tormentor head-on and refused to back down. A sense of exhilaration coursed through me, mingled with a twinge of trepidation at Eleanor's parting threat, but I would not be deterred. For too long, I had lived in the shadow of her cruelty, allowing her to dictate the terms of my life. No more. This was my moment of defiance, and I would savor every second of it. As the adrenaline subsided, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride welling up within me. I had stood my ground, defended my autonomy, and emerged victorious. At least for now. Eleanor's words still echoed in my mind, a chilling reminder that this was far from over. She was a woman scorned, and I knew better than anyone the depths of her vindictiveness. But I was no longer the meek, cowering woman she had once known. Derek's passing had awakened a fire within me, a burning desire to reclaim my life and my self-worth. And if Eleanor thought she could extinguish that flame, she was sorely mistaken. With a newfound sense of determination, I closed the door on the past and all its demons. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was ready to fight, not just for myself, but for the future I deserved. In the weeks that followed, an uneasy truce settled over my fractured relationship with Eleanor. She had retreated into sullen silence, no doubt stewing in her bitterness and plotting her next move. I, however, refused to let her threats diminish my newfound sense of freedom. That fragile peace was shattered one Sunday afternoon when Derek's sister Claire invited me to a family gathering at her house. Despite my initial hesitation, I decided to attend, determined not to let Eleanor's toxicity dictate my life any longer. The moment I stepped through the door, I could feel Eleanor's icy glare boring into me from across the room. Her eyes narrowed as I made my way towards Claire, exchanging warm hugs and greetings with the other guests. "Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence," Eleanor sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The ungrateful daughter-in-law who turned her back on her family." A hush fell over the room as all eyes turned towards us, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation I knew was inevitable. "I am not ungrateful, Eleanor," I replied, my voice steady and unwavering. "I simply refuse to be manipulated and controlled by you any longer." Eleanor let out a derisive cackle, her lips curling into a cruel smile. "Manipulated? Is that what you call filial duty? You owe me everything, you selfish girl. If it weren't for my sacrifices, you'd have nothing." "That's enough, Mother," Claire interjected, her brow furrowed with concern. "Lila has been through enough without you adding to her pain." But Eleanor was relentless, her barbs striking with precision. "Pain? She knows nothing of true pain, not like the anguish I've endured watching my son's legacy wither on the vine thanks to her failures." I could feel the weight of her words like a physical blow, stirring up old insecurities and wounds I thought had healed. But this time, something was different. A fire burned within me, fueled by a newfound sense of self-worth and determination. "You're wrong, Eleanor," I stated firmly, my voice carrying through the stunned silence. "I may not have been able to give Derek children, but that doesn't make me a failure. My love for him was pure and unconditional, something you've never understood." Eleanor's face contorted with rage, but before she could respond, I pressed on, emboldened by the support of the onlookers. "You've had a twisted hold on this family for far too long, using guilt and manipulation to get your way. But I refuse to be a part of your dysfunction any longer. I am my own person, with my own dreams and ambitions, and I won't let you or anyone else diminish that." A murmur rippled through the crowd as Eleanor's mask of superiority began to crack. Her eyes darted from face to face, desperately seeking allies, but finding only expressions of shock and, in some cases, admiration. In that moment, I knew I had won a decisive victory, not just for myself, but for all those who had suffered under Eleanor's tyranny. The veil had been lifted, exposing her true nature for all to see, and there was no turning back. As Eleanor stormed out of the room, her face flushed with humiliation, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The shackles of her control had been broken, and I was free to embrace the future on my own terms, without the specter of her cruelty looming over me. It was a pivotal moment, a turning point in my journey towards self-discovery and empowerment. And as I looked around at the faces of my newfound allies, I knew that the battle had only just begun. The aftermath of the family gathering was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one hand, I felt a sense of triumph, having finally stood up to Eleanor and exposed her manipulative ways. But on the other, I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger battle. As if on cue, my phone rang the following day, and I braced myself for another verbal assault from Eleanor. To my surprise, it was Claire's voice on the other end. "Lila, we need to talk," she said, her tone laced with urgency. "Can you meet me for coffee?" An hour later, we were seated at a secluded corner of a cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting between us. "I wanted to apologize for Mother's behavior," Claire began, her eyes clouded with shame. "What she said to you was inexcusable, and I'm sorry you had to endure that." I offered a small smile, touched by her sincerity. "It's not your fault, Claire. Eleanor has always been—" I trailed off, searching for the right words. "A vindictive, manipulative tyrant?" Claire finished for me, a rueful chuckle escaping her lips. "Believe me, I know better than anyone." My brow furrowed as I studied her expression, sensing a deeper story lurking beneath the surface. "What do you mean?" Claire took a deep breath, her fingers fidgeting with the handle of her mug. Growing up, Mother was relentless in her pursuit of perfection. Nothing we did was ever good enough, and she made sure to remind us of our flaws at every turn. A pang of recognition tugged at my heart as I listened to her words, memories of my own experiences with Eleanor's cruelty flooding back. Simon and I learned early on that the only way to survive was to either conform to her impossible standards or risk being cast aside, Claire continued, her voice tinged with bitterness. I chose the former, sacrificing my dreams to become the perfect daughter she demanded. "And Simon?" I prompted, sensing there was more to the story. Claire's expression darkened, her eyes clouding over with a mix of sadness and anger. "He refused to bow to her will, and for that, Mother made his life a living hell. She belittled him, criticized his every move, and even tried to turn Derek against him. My heart clenched at the thought of Eleanor's cruelty extending beyond just me, her venom poisoning the lives of her own children. "That's why I wanted to talk to you," Claire said, her gaze locking with mine. "You're not alone in this fight, Lila. Simon and I were with you every step of the way." A wave of relief washed over me, and I realized that in my quest for independence, I had gained something even more valuable: allies who understood the depths of Eleanor's toxicity. "Thank you, Claire," I said, reaching across the table to give her hand a gentle squeeze. "With you and Simon by my side, I feel like I can take on anything Eleanor throws at me." Claire's lips curved into a rare, genuine smile. "That's the spirit. Mother may think she's invincible, but she's about to learn that she's messed with the wrong family." As we parted ways, a newfound sense of determination coursed through my veins. Eleanor had drawn the battle lines, but she had unwittingly assembled an army against her. An army united by a common goal: to break free from her tyranny once and for all. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone. With Claire and Simon by my side, I was part of something larger than myself, a movement fueled by the desire for justice and the pursuit of freedom from Eleanor's toxic grasp. And as I stepped out into the warm afternoon sun, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope ignite within me. The tide was turning, and Eleanor's reign of terror was about to meet its match. In the weeks following my alliance with Claire and Simon, an eerie silence descended upon my ongoing battle with Eleanor. It was as if she had retreated, licking her wounds and biding her time before launching her next attack. Little did I know, the calm was merely the eye of the storm, and Eleanor was busy weaving a web of deceit that threatened to unravel everything I had worked so hard to build. The first inklings of her scheme came in the form of whispers and sideways glances from acquaintances I encountered around town. At first, I brushed them off as mere curiosity, but as the murmurs grew louder, I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something sinister was afoot. It all came to a head one afternoon when I stopped by the local cafe for my usual coffee break. As I waited in line, I overheard a conversation between two women seated at a nearby table, their voices hushed but audible enough for me to catch snippets of their exchange. "Such a shame about Lila abandoning her mother-in-law like that. And after everything Eleanor has done for her, too. Selfish and ungrateful, if you ask me." My heart pounded in my chest as I pieced together the fragments, realizing with growing horror that Eleanor had been spreading lies about me, painting me as the villain in our twisted narrative. Anger and disbelief coursed through my veins, but before I could confront the gossiping women, a familiar voice cut through the din. "Don't believe everything you hear," Claire said, her expression stern as she approached the table. "My mother is a master manipulator, and she's twisting the truth to suit her agenda." The women fell silent, their faces flushed with embarrassment at being caught in their indiscretion. Without another word, Claire beckoned me to follow her, and we swiftly exited the cafe. "Eleanor is up to her old tricks again," she fumed as we stepped onto the sidewalk. "Trying to turn the community against you by spreading vicious rumors." My mind raced, struggling to comprehend the depths of Eleanor's deception. But why? What does she hope to gain by turning people against me? Claire's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing with resolve. Isolation, alienation. She wants to break you down until you have no choice but to succumb to her demands. A chill ran down my spine as the realization sank in. Eleanor was waging a psychological war, using the very community I had called home as her weapon. "We can't let her get away with this," I said, my voice tinged with determination. "We need to expose her lies and show everyone the truth." Claire nodded, a glint of resolve in her eyes. "And we will. Simon and I have been gathering evidence, testimonies from others who have fallen victim to Mother's manipulation over the years. It's time we fought fire with fire." As we parted ways, a sense of purpose burned within me, fueling my resolve to take the fight to Eleanor. She had underestimated my strength, my resilience, and now she would face the consequences of her actions. Returning home, I immediately set to work, compiling every shred of evidence I had. from the hurtful words she had hurled at me over the years to the countless instances of emotional abuse. I pored over the documentation, meticulously organizing it into a damning case against Eleanor's tyranny. With each piece of evidence I uncovered, my determination grew stronger, solidifying my conviction that Eleanor's reign of terror must end, no matter the cost. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, a newfound sense of clarity washed over me. The battle lines had been drawn, and it was time to strike back. Not just for myself, but for every life Eleanor had sought to control and diminish. The time for retribution was nigh, and I would be the one to deliver the final blow, shattering Eleanor's carefully constructed facade and exposing her true manipulative nature to the world. The days leading up to the community event were a flurry of preparation and strategizing. Claire, Simon, and I pored over every last detail, ensuring that our plan to expose Eleanor's manipulation was airtight. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" Simon asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "Once we pull the trigger, there's no going back." I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. "I'm sure. Eleanor has tormented us for far too long. It's time she faced the consequences of her actions." Claire placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "We've got your back, Lila. No matter what happens, we're in this together." Finally, the day of reckoning arrived, and the tension was palpable as we made our way to the community center. Eleanor was already there, holding court with her usual air of superiority, oblivious to the storm that was about to be unleashed. As the event commenced, I could feel the weight of anticipation pressing down on me, my heart pounding in my chest. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the chance to expose Eleanor's true nature and reclaim my dignity once and for all. When my turn at the podium came, I took a deep breath, steadying myself for the confrontation that was about to unfold. As I stepped up to the microphone, Eleanor's eyes narrowed, sensing that something was amiss. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice ringing out clear and strong. "I'm sure many of you have heard the rumors circulating about me and my supposed mistreatment of Eleanor Turner." A murmur rippled through the crowd, heads nodding in acknowledgement of the whispers that had been spreading like wildfire. "Well, I'm here to set the record straight," I continued, my gaze locking onto Eleanor's, daring her to challenge me. "The truth is, it's not me who has been the manipulator and the abuser. It's Eleanor herself." Eleanor's face contorted with rage, her eyes blazing with fury as she realized what was unfolding. "How dare you?" she spat, rising from her seat. "You ungrateful, lying." But I didn't let her finish, pressing on with my damning expose. For years, Eleanor has subjected me to emotional and psychological torment, belittling me and making me feel worthless. And I'm not the only one. With a nod to Claire and Simon, they stepped forward, each holding a stack of documents and testimonies from others who had fallen victim to Eleanor's cruelty. "These are the accounts of people whose lives Eleanor has sought to control and manipulate, all in the name of her twisted sense of family duty," I declared, my voice reverberating through the stunned silence. One by one, the testimonies were read aloud, painting a vivid picture of Eleanor's reign of terror. A tapestry of lies, manipulation, and emotional abuse woven with startling clarity. As the final account echoed through the hall, all eyes turned to Eleanor, her once imperious demeanor shattered, replaced by a mask of humiliation and defeat. "You see," I said, addressing the stunned crowd, "Eleanor has been the true villain all along, using her position of power to subjugate and control those around her. But no more. Today, her lies and deceit have been exposed for all to see." A smattering of applause broke out, growing louder as more and more people joined in, their eyes filled with a mixture of shock and newfound respect. Eleanor, meanwhile, sat frozen, her lips trembling with a combination of rage and disbelief. In a single, climactic moment, her carefully cultivated facade had crumbled, revealing the ugly truth that she had so desperately tried to conceal. As the applause died down, I turned to face her one last time, my voice steady and resolute. "Your reign of terror is over, Eleanor. You have no power over me or anyone else anymore." With those words, I stepped down from the podium, my head held high, basking in the sweet taste of victory. The shackles of Eleanor's manipulation had been broken, and I was finally free to embrace the future on my own terms, unburdened by the weight of her toxicity. As I made my way through the crowd, surrounded by a chorus of congratulations and newfound respect, I couldn't help but feel a sense of profound relief and vindication. The battle had been long and arduous, but in the end, justice had prevailed, and the truth had set me free. Eleanor's reign of terror was over, and a new chapter in my life was about to begin, one filled with the promise of healing, growth, and the sweet taste of hard-won independence. In the weeks following my public exposure of Eleanor's manipulation, a profound shift took place within me. It was as if a weight had been lifted, a burden I had carried for far too long finally cast aside. The community's reaction had been overwhelmingly supportive, with many expressing admiration for my courage in standing up to Eleanor's tyranny. Some even shared their own stories of her cruelty, reinforcing the realization that I had not been alone in my suffering. Eleanor, however, had retreated into a self-imposed exile, her once formidable presence reduced to a mere shadow of its former self. Whispers circulated that she had become a recluse, too ashamed to face the world after her lies and deceit had been laid bare. For a fleeting moment, I felt a twinge of pity for the woman who had once wielded such power over me. But that fleeting sentiment was quickly extinguished by the memory of her cruel words and actions, a stark reminder of the emotional toll she had inflicted upon me and countless others. As the dust settled, I found myself at a crossroads, uncertain of what path to take next. The shackles of Eleanor's control had been broken, but the scars of her abuse still lingered, leaving me questioning my own sense of self-worth and purpose. It was during this period of introspection that an unexpected ally emerged, Derek's brother, Simon. He had been a steadfast supporter throughout my battle with Eleanor, and now he became a source of guidance and support as I navigated the uncharted waters of my newfound freedom. "You know, Lila," he said one afternoon as we shared a cup of coffee, "you've been through hell and back, but you came out on the other side stronger than ever." I offered a wry smile, my fingers tracing the rim of my mug. "Sometimes I'm not so sure. Eleanor's words, her constant belittling, it leaves scars, Simon." He nodded, his expression understanding. "I know. Believe me, I've been there. But you can't let her win, not anymore. You've taken back control of your life, and now it's up to you to decide what comes next." His words struck a chord within me, igniting a spark of determination that had been flickering in the aftermath of my confrontation with Eleanor. He was right. I had fought too hard and sacrificed too much to let her toxic legacy continue to haunt me. From that moment on, I made a conscious effort to reclaim my sense of self, to rediscover the woman I had been before Eleanor's manipulation had taken root. I poured myself into my work, finding solace in the creative outlets that had once brought me joy. Slowly but surely, the shadows of Eleanor's cruelty began to recede, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose and self-assurance. As the months passed, I found myself surrounded by a network of supportive friends and allies, each one a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Claire and Simon remained steadfast pillars of strength, their unwavering loyalty a constant reminder that I was no longer alone in my journey. And though Derek's absence still weighed heavily on my heart, I found solace in the knowledge that he would have been proud of the woman I had become, a woman who had stared down her demons and emerged victorious, her spirit unbroken and her determination unwavering. As I stood on the balcony of my apartment one warm summer evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I couldn't help but reflect on the long and arduous path that had led me to this moment. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in my life, I embraced that uncertainty with open arms, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, I possessed the strength and resilience to overcome them. Eleanor's reign of terror was a distant memory, a mere footnote in the story of my life, a story that was just beginning to unfold, filled with the promise of growth, healing, and the sweet taste of hard-won independence. As the night sky blanketed the city, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a peace born of the knowledge that I had reclaimed my power, my dignity, and my sense of self. The battles of the past had been fought and won, and now the future stretched out before me, ripe with endless possibilities. With a deep breath, I turned and made my way back inside, ready to embrace the next chapter of my life, a chapter written on my own terms, free from the shackles of Eleanor's toxicity and filled with the promise of a brighter tomorrow.